My name is R. Crosby Lyles, and this is News from the Can. So, it's a really interesting phenomenon that happens when you have a YouTube channel. So, YouTube is highly fucking controlled. It's really a PR platform. It used to be more of a free market of ideas kind of place, maybe a few years ago. And then they did this, they went through this thing with advertiser-friendly content and all this kind of stuff. And basically what that means is that it's really just a way to keep YouTube from being turned into a weapon. They're just taking the bat out of the hands of the public. It's kind of similar to how Robinhood recently with GameStop situation, where they were buying up shares of, well, they had like a sort of a community buy-in of GameStop stock that screwed over the hedge fund managers and stuff like that. And then, of course, Robinhood ended up caving, and so that just took the bat out of the hands of the public. And it's a very similar thing on YouTube. YouTube is highly controlled. And what it has is it has individuals who are basically pick the winners and losers based on whatever it is that their criteria is. And maybe some of that's legitimate. You got to kind of have, if you have a PhD, then that helps. But basically what you have is you have club bouncers that sort of pick who they want to let in the club and who they don't. But if you do material that's inconvenient for some people, like whoever is making money from global warming, people like Elon Musk and others. I mean, there's a whole lot of other people. There's a lot of money being made on green technology. That's the new hip thing, because the market doesn't function on value; it functions on sentiment, and so it will fluctuate based on how people feel about things and how people feel about other people, who are in charge and stuff. So we live in a universe of public relations people. So most of the channels that you see on YouTube are really just PR platforms. These are a lot of the times you'll notice that the people look kind of familiar because they're actors a lot of times. Joe Rogan was an actor. He was huge. He got, I think what did he get, like $100,000 to move over to, $100 million to move over to Spotify. And I don't know how that's working out for him, but every time I see him, he's drinking whiskey and smoking cigars and looking a little more disheveled. Joe. Hey, what are you gonna do when you're super rich and you've arrived? That's what people do. They drink whiskey, smoke cigars, and snort cocaine, and fuck all kinds of strange and interesting people. That's the way it is. We're animals. We're savages. So anyway, here's what happened, and it's fascinating. This wet bulb temperature, life or death thing. And what they have here, I want to show you this thumbnail because they're showing you the equator. And I saw that and I'm like, no, that is incorrect. Climate reanalyzer, go to 2 meter temperature. There it is, that's the equator, and the temperatures are either nominal or below average. And the sun, the spring equinox was 5 days ago on the 20th. So the sun is directly overhead. And look, it's even cooler. I've actually been to Borneo. I've actually been to Brunei. It was back in the 80s, early 80s. But, I mean, there it is. And this is at the same time, Cam's Copernicus, that this is going on. So I go to I saw that to just have a think, this thumbnail, and I said, okay, I got to leave a comment. So here we go. This is what happened. I'm going to give you the blow-by-blow. As of now, there's 1,000 parts per million CO2 in the stratosphere at 50 hectopascals between 20 degrees south latitude and 20 north latitude circling the globe. However, 2-meter temperature anomaly is nominal or below average in much of that same area. Above 20 degrees north latitude seems to be where the wet bulb temps are becoming problematic. This I know from experience. 20 degrees, I'm in Gainesville, Florida. 20 degrees is like about West Palm Beach. So, in my estimation, it's between 20 degrees and 60 degrees north latitude, which is where most of the, interestingly enough, where most of the methane actually comes from, and it's from agriculture in India and China. This may be because as much as 1,000 parts per million CO2 is at a lower level, 500 hectopascals between 30 north latitude covering the North Pole. It looks like the real high-low death zone may be between 20 and 60 degrees north latitude. No doubt we are in deep shit in any case. And if anybody has a, competing concept about that, you know what I mean? You want to know what are you guys talking about? Okay, so here's the total column. I mean, that looks pretty fucking gnarly, right? That looks pretty fucking gnarly. So here's 500 hectopascals, which is about 18,000 feet, something like that. Maybe near the tropopause-ish. Okay, so here's the legend. There's that 1,000. Now, how they interpret that, I'm not really sure, but anyway, there it is. So it's not 418, and dude, so I'm going to get to this comment in a second, so I'm just showing you this. So there it is. So you can see that between 20. So 20 north latitude is like, actually it's like maybe Cuba, something like that, somewhere in there. And 30 north is like North Florida. So yeah, between 25-ish. Could be 20. Yeah, 20 degrees and 60 degrees is, I think 60 is like the border of Canada and the United States. Somewhere in that neck of the woods is where you really have the heavy hot cold fluctuations with the heavy wet bulb temperatures that I've experienced here in Gainesville, and it is scary. It's that's an intense experience. Of course, then this is 2 years ago. I experienced this wet bulb. A fan. I'm working inside of a house. High wet bulb temperatures. I got a fan blowing right on me on high, and it's not doing anything. This is the first time it's ever happened to me in my life, and I'm like, holy shit, Guy McPherson, here it is, and when you have a fan blowing on you full blast and it's not doing anything, you're like, holy shit. So, and then we went on a trip to Costa Rica and get off the plane at San Jose Airport, and it's like a fall day in Florida. And I'm like, well, that's interesting. Gonna have to find out what's going on there. Well, there it is. I just showed you. Right? So the upshot is, and this commenter even said, so this is at about 67,000 feet. 50 hectopascals is right around, I was saying 64,000 feet. It's 20 kilometers, 67,000 feet. And if it was all CO2, so I got to look up, I got to go back and hit the books a little bit and look up what the partial pressure would be, and what the gas constituents are at that level and shit. It's, I got to brush up on that stuff a little bit. But what we're looking at here is we're looking at 50 hectopascals is 50 millibars, which is about a 20th of an atmosphere. It ends up being, and it's about negative 56 degrees Celsius at that level, and you end up with 0.00012,197 grams per cubic centimeter. But you got to look at the partial pressures, because you're looking at a pressure. If it was CO2 at that pressure, then you're asking what the density is. So that's what the density would be if it was all carbon dioxide, and it's not. It's 1,000 parts per million, so you got to look at the partial pressures, and it's a little complicated, but that's like a maximum, right? but it's not zero. And this was not this phenomenon, this 1,000 parts per million, and when you look at it, there's that red box of pixelation there at that color, and it says 1,000. And how the fuck are you supposed to interpret that? So anyway, let me continue on here with this, because it gets technical, and that's why you've got to find people who really know what they're talking about. Now, I studied engineering. I took engineering thermodynamics as an elective. I was an electrical engineering student. So I've had all your chemistries, you know what I mean? I've had all your differential equations and a fair amount of physics. This guy, Tenguda, says 1,000 parts per million CO2 in the stratosphere. Evidence? ? And so I said, go to my channel. I can sit here and tell you, or you can just go to my channel and just look at it. You know what I mean? Because basically the upshot of my channel is I got two things you can look at and know instantly what's going on. You can look at cams, you can go to cams, you can see. Because if you just give me a number like 419 parts per million, that doesn't tell me anything. That doesn't tell me. I need to know where the gas is, where it's building, and what it's doing. I need to know the precise mechanics of what it's doing, which is what I'd like to drill down into. No, I said go to my channel and 10. He says, if you cannot properly reference claims, do not expect to be taken seriously. So I'm like, okay. Go to CAM's Copernicus Atmospheric Monitoring Service, product of the European Space Agency, brought to you by the Copernicus satellite and other stuff. They back that up with balloon measurements and airplane measurements and, people on the ground and ground measurements of all kinds. Then I said, go to the reactive gas link, click on or tap CO2 above the map on the right is a selection for level. Click or tap the 50 hectopascal level and observe. Then go piss up a rope. Finer moment, I thought. Then this dude, Grind Up Baker. Anytime I see somebody who's using a handle, I'm like, why don't you just use your name, man? That's my name. Grind Up Baker. Okay, whatever. A couple of things for audience about 1,000 parts per million CO2 in the stratosphere at 50 hectopascals between 20 south latitude and 20 north latitude, not related to whether that's factual or not, which I'll be bothering to check out. At 50 hectopascals, 67 kilometers up, it's 20 kilometers. 67,000 feet. The atmosphere is 5% as dense as the surface, and it's actually, that's right. It could be. 5%, that's about right. As dense as at the surface, so the 1,000 parts per million CO2 is the same number of CO2 molecules per unit volume as 50 parts per million CO2 at the surface. Increased greenhouse gases in the stratosphere cause cooling. I think I repeatedly say that in my channel. Not warming. For the part of the stratosphere that has a negative temperature lapse rate, temperature increase will with altitude. And greenhouse gas in a tropopause in the part of the stratosphere that has no temperature lapse rate do not cause cooling or warming, no effect. Because that's precisely how the greenhouse effect works. That's its physics. This is why the warming troposphere and strongly cooling stratosphere the last few decades is the smoking gun, which absolutely proves the warming troposphere is being caused by increased greenhouse gases. Way ahead of you there, buddy. If you went to my channel and actually watched my material, then you would know that I'm like on that. And that's the whole thing behind sudden rapid onset glacial period is an imbalance. But there's other stuff. The 500 hectopascal mentioned by R. Crosby Lyles is probably in the tropopause at latitude 30 north and will be in the stratosphere further north, so increased CO2 will either have no effect at all or will cool the stratosphere, having no effect. Well, I don't know about that, bud. Having no effect on near surface or tropospheric temperatures, it is a non-issue, but if anybody is interested, then get a temperature lapse rate chart and find the altitudes at 50 hectopascals and 500 hectopascals at various latitudes and figure out whether increased CO2 will cause cooling or have no effect at the various latitudes. Enjoy. Thanks. Thanks for pointing that out. Way ahead of you. Grind up Baker again. Will cause rapid global cooling. No chance, because the global heater is now 560,000 gigawatts and it just keeps increasing. He's probably talking about sea surface temperature. That's a bloody big global heater, and all it'll do is heat. That's what heaters do. Yeah, well, there's a difference between the heat capacity of the ocean and the heat capacity of the land. So yeah, the heat capacity of the ocean, it's holding on to heat. But at the same time, the heat capacity of the land is much less. So if there's some excess water vapor in the atmosphere, stratosphere, whatever, that's blocking sunlight, right? And the temperatures dive in the North Polar region, the land is not able to hold on to that heat, and it gets much colder. And then what happens is that you get, because the ocean is holding on to that heat and it's evolving that heat, it's getting rid of it through latent heat evaporization. Then what you end up with is large quantities of precipitation, frozen and otherwise. And if you looked at my channel, then you would know that that's what I'm on. So pre-1995 was only 200,000 gigawatts and is now 500. Yeah, you got some evidence for that? But anyway, yeah, I've actually posted that. That was a while ago. The sea surface temperature chart, which is it's actually pretty compelling. But way ahead of you, dude. Yeah, posted that a long time ago. There's no way that some piss pot increase in the piss pot quantity of H2O molecules up where there's about a dozen molecules in a huge lungful will have any radiation that's even measurable, even when added globally. It's an utterly risible notion. And you just gave yourself away with that one. Risible? Professor? Yeah, okay. And then I said it all comes down to albedo. So if you have water vapor high up in the stratosphere, okay, so pretty much if you ask any climatologist, they will tell you sudden changes in global temperature and climate have to be caused by a change in the atmosphere. Has to be. What else could it possibly be but albedo? So you've got albedo of sea ice, which can have effect. But then you've also have albedo of the atmosphere if it's got a lot of water vapor in it. Richard Lindzen seems to think that ice crystals and cirrus clouds somehow produces a certain amount of global warming. And he's sort of a skeptic. He's a global warming skeptic. So I got an open mind here. All I'm saying, my big point is that shit was not there before. Okay, so you switched from water vapor and methane to albedo. You're all over the shop and you make no sense whatsoever. Well, that's because you're not paying attention. You should probably go to my channel and watch my videos and kind of get up to speed. I'm trying to speed you up here, dude. It isn't 1,000 parts per million CO2 being shown. It's a tad more than 420 parts. How the do you know? It'll be between 420 to 422 parts per million. How the do you know? The issue is that they don't bracket the ends properly. That can be clearly seen on the pictorial color scale. There was some clown woman, Margot's Healing Corner, who does healing crystals or some fucking crap and also tries climate science with her dim-witted brain. She has the same issue. I disagree with Copernicus doing that, but I sort of understand because I did highly technical computer programming 53 years ago, whatever. It's saying that past 420 parts per million, where it ends, they have no idea except they know it's greater than 420 parts per million. And that's absolutely all they know about it. But what happened is they find one pixel somewhere on a tiny grid, a square of the grid they use that measure 1,000 parts per million CO2. So that's one pixel out of all of Earth. Maybe it was a bit of highly active discharge in one tiny spot or factory chimney. They looked straight down at whatever, and they measured no more than 1,000 parts per million CO2 anywhere else on Earth, so they labeled 1,000 at the end, so the final color is absolutely any old fucking amount at all between 420 parts per million and 1,000 parts per million CO2. It's a problem with their cheap and cheesy color scheme arrangement. I could do it much better. It is patently obvious that 95% of the grid pixels having that color between 420 and 422 parts per million, maybe 5% in the 422, 430 parts per million range, and less than 1% of that final color are 430 parts per million, including the single funny pixel they measure at 1,000 parts per million CO2. I went through all this 3 or 4 years ago with that fucking idiot clown woman Margot's Healing Corner. So how does that sound to you now that I read it back to you? So first things first, this is an expensive satellite that they put, and they backed it up. I mean, the European Space Agency has put their entire reputation on this. So having said that, and so this guy's making a claim here that they're full of shit. They're either liars, or they don't know what they're talking about, or they don't know or they're incompetent. So Grind Up Baker is saying they're incompetent, or they don't know what they're talking about, or they're liars, or whatever. So this is, when is this? January 16th, 2020. And the link is in the description. If you don't want to go and look at it, then that's fine. Don't care. But here's what happened. Okay, now this is why this happened. I went and made a comment on a video over at Potholer's channel. And this was in December of 2019. Very shortly after that, within days, the Copernicus Atmospheric Monitoring Service took down the carbon dioxide window. In other words, oh, here, it'll show you right here. So if you go like, right, Copernicus CO2 and methane forecasts were down for nearly a week before. So this shows you the little thing that they put up. The chart could not be produced, data not found, blah, 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 because they were working on it. Okay? So this is what it looked like before then. It's a little thing there, right? December 28th, 2019. Then the fucking shit goes down. You get this little window here. This is before January 14th, 2020. And then January 14th, 2020, it looks like that. And there's the legend. It's still got the little 1,000 on there. It's been 2 years. They haven't changed it yet. So if you're claiming that they don't know what they're doing, this is the European Space Agency. So you're basically saying that the European Space Agency is they're either incompetent, or they're stupid, or they're liars. Which I think if you're going to make that claim, you're going to need to come stepping with some proof, dude. You know what I mean? So there it is. And it looked like that. And it was like that for, I don't know, for a little while. Maybe a few weeks. And then after a while, it reverted back. Yeah, let's let that roll for a second. Roll that beautiful bean for the... So, yeah. Right in the middle... Right? That's 50 hectopascals, which is about 67-ish thousand feet. Right? So that means that Potholer or somebody at Potholer had the girth to be able to speak to the European Space Agency, to the Atmospheric Monitoring Service over there, Copernicus Atmospheric Monitoring Service, and got them to shut down their fucking CO2 window and tinker with it and decide how they felt about how it looked and shit. And now it looks like this. And I really want to see, I'd really like to be a fly on the wall to see what they say to the motherfucker who comes along and tells them about this shit again. Because that was 2 years ago. And I'm sure that wasn't the first, last, or indifferent time that they're fucking going to hear about this fucking shit. Okay? So, I don't know. They got 1,000 there for some reason. Yeah, I thought, yeah, well, that's fascinating. It probably means that there's some uncertainty there, and they don't really know. It could be that high, or it could not be that high. But one thing you have to, one thing must be said is measuring parts per billion or parts per million in the atmosphere at a particular level, delineating it from level to level, is like no easy trick, and it requires a lot of statistical modeling. So that's an enormously difficult task. And either they're doing it for real, they're really doing it, or this is all bullshit. And if it's all, and so I need to know one way or the other. If it's all bullshit, I need to know that. We need to know that. If it's not bullshit, I think we need to know that too. And by the way, this is, this causes global cooling. And I've said that repeatedly on my channel. That's what my channel is all about. It's fucking hysterical. I'm going to have to go in there and fucking, But it's inconvenient because now, so who's got the power? And my channel got side railed. It happens all the time. It got side railed back with Potholer. Right? All of a sudden, I don't know, somebody over at Have a Think, one of his writers, producers, whatever, one of these commenters on here, because it's PR, man, there's a lot of big business in the global warming industry, said, oh, well, we better side rail his channel, because this information is really kind of sort of inconvenient. Because your average Joe's going to look at that and they're going to be like, holy shit, what the fuck is that? Which, by the way, you could do that. You could just look, go to the surface. Doesn't look that bad. It's because plants eat CO2, And that's where the action is. The surface is where the action is, right? And you could even say 850 hectopascals. Yeah, that's probably true too. Or even at the cloud top level, where it doesn't allow the heat to escape from the cloud tops, where the condensation is. It's like throwing a blanket on top of the condenser of your air conditioner. So yeah, that looks even worse. But I'll tell you what, compelling total column. And maybe they goose it like that to throw the total column, because everybody looks at the total column. That's the first thing you see when you hit this. When you go from, if you go to methane, total column, that's the first thing you see, total column, right? So maybe what they're doing is, maybe they're goosing the level by adding a little bit more at a level that nobody ever looks at, like 50 hectopascals. Why would I look at 50 hectopascals? Well, I do, because I want to know what the fuck is going on. You know what I mean? 300 hectopascals. But they're doing, it's like, you're going to go through all this? You're going to go through all that trouble? I mean, you're saying that they went through all this trouble to figure out how to image these pressure levels down in the atmosphere that are underneath other levels, and there are different quantities in these levels, and they're able to use statistical mechanics modeling and stuff to figure that out, and discursively put their dick in their hand and say, yeah, that's what it is. They put their dick in their hand and they said, yeah, man, 300 hectopascals, that's what it looks like. That's what it looks like. You're saying what? They got it wrong? They fucking... I think you should walk into the lobby and tell them, oh, you fuckers got it all wrong. You know how many fucking PhDs work over there? It'll slap your face. You got to be out of your mind. You got to be crazy. I'm just reporting what I see. And this shit here, 500 hectopascals, I mean, goddamn. They're kind of sort of making it, you think, yeah, that's 1,000 parts per million. What am I so? Oh, so I'm supposed to say that's 422 parts per million or some shit like that? You know? Really? Or, maybe it's smoke and mirrors. You know what I'm saying? Maybe that's just to blow up the what the total column looks like. Oh, we want the total column to look really bad, so we're going to add some shit and other levels so that the computer, you know what I mean, makes it look worse than it actually is. No, it could be. In which case, that would be a fraud. That would be fraud. So you're saying it's a fraud. Grind up Baker. So you're saying it's a fraud. Or that I'm an idiot and I don't know how to interpret this shit. Anyway, where did this come from? It came from methane. And how do you know that? Because you can go to the methane forecast and step through it. Let's go to methane. There it is. And I've stepped through this before. You can see it's coming from the northern hemisphere. My contention is it's probably not. There's a lot of methane coming from, if you look at the surface level, there is indeed a lot of methane coming from the usual suspects, rice fields in India and China, where it's been coming from for 11,000 years. But there's other spots, and and they say, this channel on Have a Think's channel, just Have a Think, he says that there's been methane boiling up from the Laptev Sea or some shit like that. So, and if it's spread out, then you may not see a point where it's coming from. It may just be like spread out. But if you do if you do a little calculus and you measure the volume of gas that's coming up, which actually, if you just go up to 850 hectopascals, you can see it's a lot thicker, right? And also over China, that's actually Vietnam, what they used to refer to as Indochina. They're growing rice this time of year. So it's 850 hectopascals, 500 hectopascals, it's a little bit thicker, 300 hectopascals, right? And it starts thinning out, and that's because of ozone. But that ozone is the footprint of methane right there, because organic compounds produce. It's a reaction body. It produces ozone is a footprint of methane. And you can see that the ozone level is right around the equator. Has been eaten up. This is the subject of my channel at this point. And I stumbled into this. I don't get paid to do this shit. And so now my channel is been fucking side railed. It happened when I made a comment over at Potholer's channel. It happened when I made a comment over it. So somebody over here at Have a Think, one of these commenters or somebody else, has the wherewithal, has the girth, the power to be able to make a phone call, whatever, send somebody a message over to YouTube, and tweak and shut down various parts of my channel. That's important to understand. And Elon Musk, of course, he's the fucking richest man in the world, $100 and some odd billion, $140 billion, some shit like that. The man is worth. Yeah, you can pick up the phone. Hey, I need you to turn this fucking thing off over here. You know what I mean? You don't have there ain't no fucking such thing as free speech anymore. It's all bullshit. Everything on YouTube it's all PR. Anybody who's got that gets more than, I don't know, a few thousand views or whatever, either they're talking about nothing, bullshit, or or they're doing PR, public relations work. And if you dare to fucking to offer an off flavor, and it's just inconvenient, it's hard to explain. How are you going to explain that? Like, if you show that to the wrong people, that they're going to freak out and it's going to be too much, right? And they might just dip out of the whole thing entirely. It might just scare everybody away. They might just say fuck it, right? And then all of a sudden you're not selling windmills and solar panels anymore. All of a sudden you're not selling solar panels and which Elon Musk likes because he's in the battery business. He'd like for every grid on planet Earth to be wind and solar, because then that's all Tesla batteries. And all of a sudden he's a trillionaire selling batteries to keep that stuff going. And you're burning up an enormous amount of coal and gas to produce all of that crap, when you could very easily power the entire Earth with small nuclear reactors, which is this guy here. Where is he? Where did I see him? Just saw this dude a second ago. There he is. This guy right here. I can't remember his name. Why I changed my mind about nuclear power. Michael Schellenberger. Yeah, when I saw that video right there, I was like, oh yeah, of course. It's the energy density. The energy density of uranium is like millions of times. It is like 7 or 8 orders of magnitude higher than wind, solar, any of that shit. Gasoline. It's like, you can make the most inefficient fucking nuclear reactor in the world and it would still be better than wind, solar, any of that other stuff, and you don't have to mow down the fucking vegetation in order to put in your solar panels and shit. And you don't have to expend all that energy. The amount of energy to put it in small nuclear reactors is nothing compared to the amount of energy that you got to expend to make all those fucking solar panels. And China's in the solar panel business. It's all bullshit. It's all total fucking bullshit. So you see who has the power. So whoever it is over at Have a Think, they have enough power to side rail my channel. And Potholer did too. And now Potholer, I think he's like doing other shit now. I don't think he's really on the, because global warming is it's a wedge issue. And that's the other thing too, is a wedge issue. That's this right here. Conversation's over, man. That's it. That's a wrap. Because it means that you're working with a methane pulse. This is a footprint of a methane pulse. And you can feel free to argue with me about it. Please. Right? This ozone forecast? Right? What's interesting is that this kind of a clear area there up there, and I don't know where that's right off of. This over here is Vladivostok over here, so it's Chukchi Sea somewhere in there. I think it's like a Chukchi Sea, something like that. Laptev Sea, right in there, which is interesting. But anyway, that's an indicator. But this right here, this is a dead giveaway. There's no other place that this carbon dioxide is going to come from. It's got to come from methane, and it's got to be from it's a methane pulse, because methane has been wafting off of rice fields in India and China for 11,000 years, and it didn't. And this was not there. This was not there, as I showed a little while ago. This shit was not there 2 years ago. There's that. Oh wait, what's this? January 25th, 2019. 50 hectopascals. So that's a year before. That's January 25th, 2019, and that's December 28th, 2019. So that's about a year. It's about a year's difference. December 28, 2019 comes after January. So that's December 28th. This is a year after, and I just put this in here for reference. And this right here is January 25th of 2019, which is about a year earlier, and that's what it looked like. 1,000, same place, same deal, right? So, and that's, you know, and I'm scrolling through here, you know, just basically, you know, I got to make some content, got to do something, and I see that, and I'm like, holy shit, where'd that come from? So, and I think that anybody who has questions about that, you should call, you know, Copernicus Atmospheric Monitoring. So those people are not dummies; they're professionals. They got more PhDs and graduate students over there than you can shake a stick at. You're going to tell me the European Space Agency doesn't know what they're doing, or they're going to put on some kind of a scam? They're going to run some kind of a scam? I mean, I guess anything's possible, but if they are, we need to find out. We need to know about it. If not, we need to know about it. Other than that, we can watch all the people out there, you know, running PR. We can watch them tie themselves in knots. Trying to get around this, and it's inconvenient for everyone. See, that's what's beautiful about it. The truth is inconvenient for everyone. And that's all I got. Just had to make a little video about that, and you know, hey, look, ain't no good guys, ain't no bad guys. It's just you and me, and we just disagree. So I'm going to have to go back and cut out a bunch of foul language, but that's okay. And that's all I got. My name is R. Crosby Lyles. This is March 25th, 2021, and it's been News from the Can. Thanks for watching. See you.